Swift. Oh, fuck, that hurt. Hey everyone, this is Gojira2012 here today with a review, and this time it's a little different. I'm reviewing a movie that's currently out in theaters, and I really wanted to talk about it. This is Spider-Man Homecoming, and for those of you who know, and if you don't know, you should know, I am a huge Spider-Man fan. I've been a Spider-Man fan ever since I was a little kid. It's been so long. I got into it from the 90s animated series when they ran reruns. I want to believe on, it's now known as, oh, Jetix. Jetix, yeah, they used to play reruns on there. And now, ever since then, I've just been a huge fan of Spider-Man. I even wore this shirt I got to the show. This is, in case you didn't know, this is issue 1 of Spider-Man drawn by Todd McFarlane at the time, before he moved on to other things. So yeah, right before we jump into this movie, I figured I'd talk about the previous Spider-Man movies. I am a fan of the, I wouldn't say huge, well, I mean, I love these movies, basically based on nostalgia, but I do love the Raimi movies, mainly the first two. The third one, I have a guilty pleasure for, I won't even lie. I know it's awful, but I can still find entertaining bits out of it. The Amazing Spider-Man, I just felt was lazy because it was basically another version of the first Raimi Spider-Man movie. I didn't know how to really put it at first. I had to think about it. But yeah, it was okay for what it was, I guess, despite it not being original in the slightest. And then you have the Amazing Spider-Man 2, and well, that was a train wreck. I'm probably one of the few people that thinks that's even worse than Spider-Man 3. At least Spider-Man 3 was somewhat coherent. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was more of a jumbled mess than 3. It's like, I think Sony was like, how do we go and make a movie worse than Spider-Man 3? And they were like, oh, I know, why don't we force Mark Webb to do all these things that he probably doesn't want to do? It's ridiculous. Look, if you like those movies, more power to you. Me, myself, not a fan. So when this came out, or actually not when it came out, but when this was announced, I had some doubts because on one hand, yes, it is Marvel Studios working on it, and their track record's been really good as of lately. But on the other hand, they're still tied to Sony, and Sony usually puts out shitty movies. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know if they were going to have any kind of involvement, so to speak. I mean, there is involvement by them, but I didn't know if they'd play a huge role. And according to what I read, Marvel Studios had the main creative control, which is a good sign, which is good. So going into this movie, I wasn't entirely sure. But now that I watched it and I came out of it, I can tell you straight up, this was a really good movie. It's definitely better than the last 3 Spider-Man movies we got. Mark Webb's duology, throw that out the window. Spider-Man 3, I don't know if it's better than Spider-Man 2 as far as Homecoming goes. I think Homecoming is a really good movie. If I had to rank them, 1 and Homecoming would be tied for 2nd place. But if I had to actually list them, then Homecoming would probably be number 3. Now, I'm not saying Homecoming is, you know, not as good as Spider-Man 1. That's just my opinion. I'm sure people out there love this movie. They probably think it's their favorite Spider-Man movie, and I can't argue with them. It's probably the first Spider-Man movie to actually feel like the comics. It feels just like the comics. The Peter Parker Spider-Man we get by Tom Holland, excellent choice. He embodies the character. He is so good. People like to talk about how Andrew Garfield was the definitive Spider-Man Peter Parker, even though the only part of the character he somewhat got down was Spider-Man. His Peter Parker was, I don't know, I didn't really care for his Peter Parker too much. I don't know, he didn't really resonate with me. Tom Holland, on the other hand, he's really good as Peter Parker. It's not often that you can find somebody who can make both roles, because, I mean, Maguire was a good Peter Parker, but his Spider-Man was very lacking, without any quips and all. And the only time he does quip is in the first movie. The Amazing Spider-Man, that's all Spider-Man did was quip. He quipped, but they made Peter Parker out to be a complete jerk. Even when there were times where he shouldn't have been, it just didn't feel right. I know in the early comic books he does get kind of jerky when he gets his powers at first, and the Amazing Spider-Man was onto something with that. But the Amazing Spider-Man 2, he was still a dickhead. It's like he didn't learn. So with this movie, they nailed it perfectly. They made Peter out to be a nice guy. Like, he's not overly cocky or anything. The only time he's cocky is when he's Spider-Man, and that's how it should be. They really did nail his character in this movie. I'm going to try and keep this review spoiler-free. I'm going to try. If I think I have to address a spoiler, I'll let you know, and then I'll give you a timetable as to when you could skip it. Michael Keaton as the Vulture was really good. He's definitely up there as one of the better MCU villains, and people who have seen the Marvel Cinematic Universe and all their villains already know that they usually have one-dimensional villains. They're not all that great. Michael Keaton, on the other hand, when you compare him to the rest, he's definitely up there in the top 5 category, if not top 3. Because Michael Keaton was a great villain with a reasonable motivation. And I'm not going to reveal that motivation because that would probably give away too much in the movie. But Michael Keaton as the Vulture was really good. No surprise, especially if you're a Michael Keaton fan. I like the side characters too. Ned Leeds as Peter's like best friend, essentially, you know, the Harry Osborn, so to speak, in this movie. He did a pretty good job. He was very quirky, he was very funny, especially when he finds out Peter's true identity as Spider-Man. And by the way, that's not a spoiler, that's given away in the trailers. Zendaya as Michelle was pretty good too. She was very funny. There was a lot of lines here and there that were genuinely like laugh out loud. Some moments that she had with people like Peter and Ned. Very funny stuff. I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that she was just a straight up jerk. She did not give a shit about anything. I like that in people sometimes, and here it really showed because she was one of the better characters in this movie. Going into this movie, I thought Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr. or whatever, I thought he was going to have more screen time, but surprisingly, he's not on screen as much as you'd think. But when he's there, he definitely has a presence, and he plays a big role in this movie as far as like getting Peter back on track, and I'm sure you could tell that by the trailers. The whole idea is that he needs to get himself straightened out before he can, you know, fully be like an Avenger or a superhero or whatever. I mean, I don't think that's really much of a spoiler. I'm sure anybody going into this movie would figure that out. Like, you know, he's trying his best to be in the Avengers because they give it away in the movies. You know, he's like, oh, Tony Stark needs to start treating me like an adult because I'm not a kid. And then, you know, in the trailer, Ned's like, oh, but you are a kid. Very entertaining characters, whether it be the main characters or the side characters, you know, supporting characters, whatever you want to call them. Very good characters overall. None of them felt like, eh. I mean, I'm still not sold on the guy who's playing Flash. There's also some things I'm going to get into later on. I know I said there wouldn't be spoilers, but I'm going to give a spoiler section because there's just so much to talk about in this movie, especially when you're a Spider-Man fan like me. I really like the score to this movie. The score by Michael, I can't pronounce his last name. I'll put his name like down here or something. Michael G. I'll call him Michael G. His score is pretty good. I like the fact that they threw in the classic 1960s Spider-Man theme. It's a very catchy song, and hearing it in an orchestral like manner, really nice, really cool. I really love the score done for whenever Vulture's on screen. His song is epic. His theme, really good stuff. For some reason, I liked it even more than Spider-Man's theme. I don't know. It's just the way it sounds. It sounds so loud and impactful, like dun, 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 dun. It's something like that. I need to hear it again to get the full gist, but it's just a nice track if you ask me. Very, very powerful stuff as far as like building up your villain. Alright, now it's time to jump into spoilers. This time mark down here, right where my finger is, that's where you can skip to avoid spoilers if you have not seen the movie already. Alright, and let's go. First things first, I want to get this out there. Towards the end of the movie, Michelle says that her friends call her MJ, so that whole rumor, that entire rumor about her being Mary Jane Watson, you could argue is true. I'm still not certain. That could just be like her initials, just MJ, you know. It might just be a coincidence, or maybe it's just Marvel trolling the fans, because if not, and that actually is this series Mary Jane, I'm kind of disappointed, because I'm not going to go into like anything too negative other than the fact that her character it doesn't feel like Mary Jane to me. When I think of Mary Jane, I don't really think of this character. This character is too much of a jerk. Mary Jane's more of a nicer person, so to speak. This character, Michelle, in the movie just doesn't feel like Mary Jane to me. But who knows? They could fix that in the sequels if she turns out to be, you know, this trilogy's Mary Jane Watson. I'm not fully sold on it yet, just like Flash Thompson, but we'll have to wait and see. Also, Michelle, or I should call her maybe MJ, has this obsession with Peter throughout the entire movie, or she's got this fixation on him. I don't know what it is, but she basically stalks him throughout the whole movie because wherever Peter is, she's like 3 steps behind him at least. She's always by him. Like, for example, there's a scene where he's in detention. She's there too. And the detention guy's like, oh, you don't even have detention. And then she's like, yeah, I know. And she tries to play it off like she doesn't actually give a shit about, like, Peter, you know, like her character. She plays it off like she doesn't care. And throughout the whole movie, if you look at this carefully, you'll be able to notice it. She's definitely playing it off like a typical, like, crush. Like, oh, I don't like Peter, you know, like that kind of deal. But in actuality, she does. She's definitely going to become a love interest down the line, and curious to see how that plays out. I also thought it was pretty cool how the father of Liz Allen, or you know, this, I don't know if it's really Liz Allen, considering her father is the Vulture, Adrian Toomes, which I thought was a very nice twist. I didn't see it coming. I mean, I'm not going to lie. There was a story leak back on, I want to say Reddit or 4chan last year that tried to claim that she was the daughter of the Vulture. I didn't believe it at the time, but it actually still shocked me because I just didn't know what to think when I first read that leak. Yeah, I get in the leak sometimes. It's okay. I just, you know, my curiosity peaks, and sometimes I gotta feed it or else it's gonna consume me. But yeah, that was a nice twist. It was actually cool because we got to see Peter and Toomes in situations I never thought I'd see, like the hero and villain in. Like you've got friggin' Adrian Toomes driving Liz and Peter to prom, and he's over here asking all these questions, and Liz brings up that, like, oh, he's got the Stark internship, he's friends with Spider-Man, and then Peter's like, Liz, maybe you shouldn't, because he's freaking out. He's like, oh shit, this is the bad guy I'm after. And yeah, he's over here all like worried and shit, and then finally when he does figure it out, you could tell, because Michael Keaton's performance really peeks through here, because he does everything with his face, and like he just, you know, he looks all pissed. For a second he looks all concerned, then he gets this little smirk like, oh, I see what's going on. It's a really good performance by Michael Keaton, and Tom Holland really does a good job in this scene too, because you can really feel the tension. Freaking, you could cut this tension with a knife. I believe that's the saying. If not, then I'm an idiot. So go ahead and correct me in the comments. I mean, go ahead, shame me. I really wouldn't give a shit otherwise. But yeah, everything between the Vulture and Spider-Man was handled very well. Like when Vulture first attacks Spider-Man in the movie, it's during a scene where he's going after the criminals, the person who would eventually become the 2 people who would end up being the Shockers. Yes, there's more than one in this movie. The first one is basically an afterthought because he gets vaporized by the Vulture. Then the second one, he has a bigger role, so to speak, but he's no more than a henchman, as the Shocker probably should be, considering Shockers. He's an okay villain, but he's definitely not like A tier or anything like that. If anything, at most he's probably like lower B tier, maybe C tier. I'm a fan of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, and when I found out that the guy who plays Nacho, I forgot his name, but Nacho's a character from Better Call Saul, when I found out that he was Matt Gargan, and he's going to basically be the Scorpion, that was really cool, because he's a great actor. He's very good, especially in the bad guy role, so I'm very curious to see how he is going to turn out in the sequels, because the after credits scene teases that the Scorpion's going to be in future installments along with other villains. They don't give out the other villains' names, but Scorpion goes out of his way to say, like, oh, there's going to be there's people outside of the walls here in this prison that would love to get the chance to meet up with Spider-Man, or, you know, basically like that. And they're like, oh, and rumor has it, Mr. Toomes, you know his identity. And the final battle between the Vulture and Spider-Man ends with the Vulture trying to steal tech from the Avengers plane that's trying to deliver shit to the new base because they're relocating upstate. You know, I believe where the other Avengers location is in the other films, like Civil War, for example. And he's trying to steal all the shit from the plane, but the stuff he's trying to steal, the alien technology, which is revealed to be from the Avengers movie, back when the aliens invaded, it's revealed to be explosive. So Toomes doesn't know this, and Peter's trying to, like, stop him from stealing it, but he's also trying to make sure he doesn't die. And thankfully Peter saves his life, and I believe that's Adrian Toomes' way of saying, you know, thank you to an extent by not giving out his identity. Oh, hey PlayStation, how you doing? See, those are kind of the downs of having to record on such last minute notice. I didn't even plan on doing this review. I just really wanted to talk about this movie. So yeah, they dropped a lot of hints in this movie, some towards Miles Morales with David Glover's character, or Danny Glover, I believe his name is. Whatever, one of you guys will correct me down below. as well as subtle hints on Uncle Ben with Aunt May, because Peter's like, you know, Aunt May can't find out I'm Spider-Man. She's already been through enough lately. And it's funny that was mentioned because at the end of the movie, he puts on his Spider-Man suit and he's like wearing it again because Tony Stark takes it away from him. You know, as you could tell by the trailers, he takes it away, and then when he finally gets it back, he puts it on. He's like, yeah, he's all unmasked in his room with the door wide open. So like what'd you think was gonna happen? It turns around, Aunt May standing there all shocked, and it literally ends with her going like, what the fuck? And it cuts her off. It's hilarious. Great stuff. I'm really curious how this is going to play out in the sequels, but I'm not going to lie. They really nailed Spider-Man with this movie. Hands down, the best on-screen Spider-Man. I love Tobey Maguire. I thought Andrew Garfield was okay. Tom Holland is the best. Hands down. No question. And if you disagree, then you need to read a comic book, because quite frankly, Tom Holland is the Spider-Man we deserve. So yeah, would I recommend this movie? Absolutely, especially if you're a Spider-Man fan. If you've read comic books as far as Spider-Man goes, you'll definitely appreciate it more, because it feels like a big love letter, so to speak, to comic book fans out there that love Spider-Man. And if you're not a comic book fan and just want to watch a good movie, then you're in for a treat, because this movie is really good. I went into this movie having doubts, but I came out with a changed perspective, because this movie was really good. Definitely one of the best Spider-Man movies I've seen. So yeah, you should definitely go check it out when you get the chance. Thanks for watching. I hope you agreed with me. What would you like to see happen in the Spider-Man Homecoming sequel? I know there's news going around that a villain that hasn't been on screen might be in it. I'm guessing it's going to be Scorpion, but if there was going to be another villain, I would say Mysterio would be an awesome choice. I just love to see the illusions and shit done on screen. But yeah, let me know down below what you want to see in the sequel and what you thought of Homecoming if you've seen it already. This is Gojira 2012, saying farewell for now. I'll catch y'all later.